if TikTok Shop is like such a gold rush in the US, like why was it so slow to like be adopted in the UK? I know there's obviously a difference in size of the country, but it feels like in terms of like order of magnitude, it feels like way smaller in the UK than it should be, right?
From my perspective, and I think just the UK market as a whole is a lot more skeptical to everything, I would say. It's probably the best way to put it. I feel like it was just not mature enough to kind of understand that was coming. But people are very, very price sensitive in the UK.
Yes. Hey everyone, welcome to the second in-person podcast session. Today we have Ashley. It's funny because, you know, throughout multiple companies, I've always wanted to sit down and talk to Ashley on a podcast. So before I introduce him, you know, I'd rather you honestly introduce yourself. I know you have like a podcast. You've had multiple different entrepreneur efforts and endeavors as like media buying, TikTok Shop. A lot of people may have seen you on LinkedIn, but, you know, want to let you introduce yourself real quick first.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a privilege to doing this, like say, face to face. But yes, I'm Ashley, so founder of Social Tail. So we are a TikTok shop / social commerce agency. My background, gosh, showing my age a little bit, but I say in my previous life, I'd say I was a media buyer to begin with at Mediacom, big agency, working on brands like Adidas, Reebok, American Airlines, all that good fun. And then from my perspective, I always was interested in TikTok because, again, at that stage, Meta was getting quite easy because, again, it was becoming more like creatives heavy, I should say. And I was always trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be the next big thing? And at that stage, we were trying to get, I remember at the time, Adidas on the platform on TikTok. This was just from an organic perspective. I was like, okay, well, the big brands like Adidas are trying to get on TikTok, then there's going to be probably something about it. And even at this stage, people are still thinking, oh, TikTok's just a dancing platform. So again, there's not much legs to it. But then I'd thought, okay, let me just figure this out. So I was continuing to work at my day-to-day job. And then at the same time, was still trying to just do I was always side hustling on the side, like say before obviously agency, I was always trying to grow an agency, trying to launch different things in terms of website, affiliate marketing, building WordPress websites, all that good stuff. So I thought, okay, let's just give this a shot and see where it goes. So it was kind of when COVID hit, and that's kind of when we had more time at home. Because I remember leaving the office and thinking, oh, we'll be back in the office in a few weeks' time. And obviously that didn't happen. So it then allowed to have more time to be focusing obviously on my day-to-day, but at the same time being able to figure out other stuff that was happening. So it allowed me to go deeper into the whole TikTok kind of space. And then I had a conversation with my wife and said, look, well, this is a kind of opportunity for me to just kind of, let's try this agency thing full time. And if it goes well, great. If not, I can always go back to a full-time agency. So at that point, I was still doing, say, Meta, and then it kind of moved from Meta to creatives, then creatives to TikTok. TikTok was always in there, but it was only a small sliver because, again, I was always consulting brands and I was showing them how to go viral or running TikTok ads. But at that stage, you can never see the ROI from TikTok because, again, the attribution was so bad. And obviously, again, you get these videos that have millions of views, but then the brand's like, oh, but where's the sales? And you're like, well, okay, the sales not actually there. So again, it was always hard to convince brands to kind of do it for a long period of time. And then lo and behold, then funny enough, TikTok Shop launched in the UK, which again, people think that it was US first, but it actually was the UK market. So again, was one of the first on TikTok Shop in the UK, figuring it out. I can't remember the brands we worked with, but a few brands, but then TikTok UK kind of then stopped TikTok Shop. So then again, it kind of went quiet. So again, it's been a lot of back and forth. And again, probably now for the last 2.5 years, nearly 3 years now, it's been fully, focusing on the whole TikTok Shop, growing it and just figuring it all out. So yeah, it's a bit of the story.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. Sounds like you were really experimenting, getting into entrepreneurship early. You know, I am curious. You said you're doing TikTok social, but also Meta ads. Yes. I think the marketers who do both of those things have completely different mindsets, right? It's almost counterintuitive. The performance marketing framework for Meta ads, especially back then, is very systematic. You're just variably testing creative across different audiences, and then going broad, creating lookalikes, testing new creative. It's all very systematic and variations based. Versus organic social on TikTok is extremely creative and not as tangible, right? I'm curious, which one were you better at? Did you lean more towards Meta ads? Was there more money to be made there, or was there a specific thing that made you more biased to something like TikTok social?
Yeah, I think at that stage it was definitely Meta was still always which is still now, right? It's obviously the prime kind of platform, right? And again, obviously it could always show, okay, you spend $1 here, you get $5 back. You could always see that, right? So from a perspective of selling it to brands, they could see obviously that it makes sense to obviously work with someone like myself at that time as a consultant, or growing an agency, because I had that experience doing it for, like say, the bigger brand. So again, it was always easy to sell it in terms like from myself as a freelance perspective, because again, like I say, I worked at them bigger brands. So that part was always easy. And again, I think because TikTok was harder to sell, because like I say, trying to sell anything is always hard, right? But again, if you're trying to sell something and they're like, oh, well, how can we, if we're spending X on it, what we're going to see back from it? And when you didn't really have like you had an answer in terms like, yeah, you're going to build brand awareness and you'll see some of that traffic. But again, the numbers don't lie, right? If you can't see sales, then again, people are not going to stay on. So again, the meta side of things always was more, I wouldn't say more interesting. I'd say it's more easier, because again, obviously it was an easier platform. And even that stage, it was becoming easy, because again, I was kind of running meta when it was kind of like just your simple like right hand column kind of like ads, which again was like prehistoric now. People would think to kind of think of that. So again, I think because I was doing meta for so long, it just kind of became so easy for me. And again, I'm someone who likes to be testing, trying new things. And I think that was the main thing that kind of made me move across from, like say, meta to fully going to TikTok, because again, I just knew that a big platform as TikTok was at that stage, because again, obviously in the US and obviously in China and stuff like that, it was obviously still, it was continuing to grow. So I thought, even though I was in UK, because again, funny story, we always get a lot of brands in the US. Again, I'm not sure how that's ever happened, but again, even when I was doing freelance, it was always US brands for meta. And then again, that kind of then transitioned into US brands for TikTok, stuff like that. So again, it just always made sense from a meta perspective, because the performance was always there. But again, in the back of my mind, I was always like, okay, I want to figure this TikTok side out. But I knew meta would kind of pave the way, because it was clients who were going to pay, for example. And at the same time, I could then figure out this whole TikTok kind of thing, whatever that would become, I should say.
So you're basically like paying for your time to figure out TikTok while you quit your job,
exactly,
right? Or sort of like moonlighting a TikTok service with your new revenue from Meta
Exactly
ads.
that, because I think there was no way to just forget a Meta and do TikTok, because it was so inconsistent at the time, right? So again, obviously we've got to live at the same time. So again, I couldn't be just putting all my eggs into the TikTok basket and be like, not working. And again, I think again, the good transition was, going to say, it went from Meta to kind of more TikTok UGC. And I think that was kind of because UGC was always going to be an easy sell from a Meta perspective, right? Because again, you need creatives. And again, some of that creatives, you can then kind of merge it in terms of like, okay, organic for then your profile in terms of on TikTok. So again, it was a kind of an easier transition rather than just going, okay, this is Meta and then moving straight to TikTok. I think because it was more transitional, it definitely helped.
So did you ever experiment with like creating a UGC company? Because like that was like a hot thing.
That happened. That happened. But again, for me, I didn't enjoy it too much. And again, don't get me wrong, we had clients who were doing it, but again, it was just the back and forth of dealing. That's
the review stage.
It was just the absolute nightmare. And then it was coming back wrong, and then how to price for it, and then the margin. And it was just like, you know what? There's just a lot of moving parts. I'm doing wrong. There's a lot of moving parts with TikTok, right? But sure. At that stage, it just didn't excite me. It didn't like fuel me to kind of continue to do it, because I was just like, what am I doing this for? So I think that was definitely a thing that, yes, transitioned into it, because again, I think because it was the hot thing at the time, but it just didn't really sit well with me.
So when was the time you like experimented with the UGC company exactly? I know you said around COVID, you sort of started leaning into TikTok. So this was pre-COVID.
This was this was pre. So again, I was still already working at my previous company.
It's like 2018 or 2017?
2017, 2018. Yeah, because that stage, like I say, I was still, again, obviously, I was at agency, but I was like still growing agency at the side. So at that stage, I was trying everything. So again, we did a bit of Google ads, because one of our clients who was Facebook, but they went to Google, right? So again, we said, we can do Google. So I found a freelance to do Google. Yeah. Then one of our brands who was in beauty, we did their meta ads, but they needed emails. So I was like, we can do email as well. So again, it was just trying to figure out what was the best way. Because I always knew in my head, obviously, even rewinding back further, if I wasn't, my aim was always to be, when I was younger, a footballer. That was always the dream. I wanted to be the football player, didn't make it, got to 18, and I thought, okay, my aim in life is I want to work for myself. That was always my mentality. I didn't know how that was going to be. And this is obviously the stage before, obviously, all these agency courses came out and all that stuff. So again, it was just trying to figure out what was the best method. And like say, I think it paved well in terms of learning and figuring out, like say, whether it was the UGC side of stuff or whether it was, like say, trying to build websites or going on Upwork and hiring people, stuff like that. I think it definitely all paved the way to obviously where we are today, I'd say.
Well, it's kind of interesting because like you were experimenting with UGC in like 2018 and like my dad actually had a startup where he created a creator marketplace I think like 20 years too early.
That's a problem in today.
And it's interesting because it almost sounds like throughout your career path, you're experimenting with like early stage creative, verticals, right? But then throughout your career, you were testing a lot of performance marketing verticals, right? So
definitely.
I don't know if you know my background, but I actually created a UGC add-on or vertical at an agency I used to work at, right? And I think the time where this was like kind of before the space got really saturated with how it is now, it was like 2022, 2023,
Jeez,
right?
yeah.
So like that's sort of when like, you know, you saw the Billo and Join brands, like those guys kind of picking up, right? So I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting. It's interesting that you got there a few years early, right?
Yeah.
And even while performance was making the money, I mean, from like a finance perspective, why not just lean into like what's working?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I understand like from a performance marketing perspective now, because all the ads algorithms are like AI targeting based.
Of course,
creative is the new targeting, right?
Yep.
I'm sure you hear that over and over
all
again,
the time.
right?
Yep.
But you were sort of early to that. Like, did you know like ads algorithms were gonna like pivot that way, or did you have any leading indicators that made you split your focus out of something that worked?
Yeah, I think I knew it was definitely happening that way. And again, I think that's why I'm most thankful for that. I did work at agency beforehand because again, like I say, when I was working with brands like say your Adidas and your Reebok, we were spending like millions a month on ads, and it was so simple that literally you could put, it was literally all heavy creative, right?
Yeah.
So again, you didn't have to target, your targeting was geo and age, depending obviously what the kind of campaign would be. And again, it would find the audience, you know what I mean? It would always perform. So it got to a stage where it was very basic, and I'm just like, how is this real? Do you know what I mean? In terms of that, it's just so simple that we're spending like millions of pounds each month on all these different Adidas campaigns and always hitting the target with little effort. So I was just like, this is definitely going to continue to go that way because it's not going to obviously go in the other direction, right? So again, I remember it got to a stage where again, was always doing like 10% lookalike, 8% lookalike of this, that.
It's like so far.
So far, literally. And then now, then just started getting less and less and less. And I was like, well, this is going to just continue to get less and less and less, right? Because technology is going to continue to get better, and that was just always going to be the case. So
you can keep spending it like an 8 and 10% if you're making at least 2.5x.
Exactly right. So it was always the case. So I was just like, every month we ran a different, and it just always hit. And whether that was because we worked on bigger brands that were already global and was known, but again, I think I got to that stage where I thought, okay, I'm this. Not again to be big-headed, but I was this high in terms of like at the agency and working with the bigger brands. I'm like, do I really want to leave the agency and then go work with smaller brands that got to start from scratch and kind of do all that? I just thought, you know what, let's just kind of just pivot and see what else is out there, really. That was kind of my perspective on it.
But it was working so well, like why not pivot and ask for like a percentage of like revenue generated? I'm sure your agency was billing on like a, you know, fixed retainer fee plus percentage of spend, right? Like couldn't you have just upped your promotion and got that upside? You know,
probably could have, to be honest. I think maybe a bit naivety as well could have been the case. Do you know what I mean? Like at stage, you're young, you always want to kind of find something that no one else kind of has found as well, I guess. I think that's kind of the mentality I always had at that stage in terms of, okay, what is, like I say, it's always what is going to be next and what could I do that is going to be different to what everyone else is doing to a degree. Because again, like, I just think there was so much, which is not a bad thing, obviously, because there's always going to be competition, right? But again, it was kind of just like everyone was doing the same playbook in terms of launching ads and doing this and then hitting this. And it's again, because like I say, when I was doing Adidas, we had like our performance team, which was performance, but then we also had our brand team as well. So we kind of were spending across both. So I could see the best of both worlds, which is actually quite interesting as well. So again, it just got to a stage where I just felt like it was just too easy. And I just knew that because it was so easy, I just don't think I would ever, no matter how much I'm getting paid, I think it would just been just too boring to continue that kind of way.
Interesting. So it wasn't like, it's so easy, I can do it and make more upside.
Yeah.
It just wasn't
It
stimulating.
just wasn't stimulating enough. Yeah, literally. It's something that I didn't wake up and think, oh, great, we're going to spend X amount of pounds or dollars, whatever it is. It just didn't really like ignite me to kind of like, okay, I'm going to continue to do this for a long period of time.
I guess like, you know, TikTok Shop like is more challenging objectively.
Yes, of course.
And it's interesting because like TikTok Shop has hit the UK in 2021, I think, and you pivoted around that time, right? I mean, like it doesn't sound like there were many leading indicators that made you, it was more of like a push factor more than like a pull factor, right? You know, right now, like we just did a presentation at the, you know, UK TikTok HQ, right? And we work with a lot of product teams, and when we query our creator database, like the TikTok UK creator database is like 6 times less creators than the US. But TikTok UK started like 4 years earlier, right? If TikTok Shop is like such a gold rush in the US, like why was it so slow to like be adopted in the UK? I know there's obviously a difference in size of the country, but it feels like like in terms of like order of magnitude, it feels like way smaller in the UK than it should be, right? Do you have any reason why you think that might be so?
From my perspective, and I think just the UK market as a whole is a lot more skeptical to everything, I would say. It's probably the best way to put it. I feel like it was just not mature enough to kind of understand that was coming, because again, and even see it, well, not as much today, but you still see it in terms of like people are very, very price sensitive in the UK,
Yes.
a lot. So again, if you have something that's like more expensive, for example, like some one of our brands in the UK, we sell cereal, but again, it's a more high protein, more expensive cereal. And even today, we're still people like, oh, why is it so expensive? I can go and buy cornflakes, something like that. So again, that's in 2025. Keep in mind, this was 2021. People were very skeptical in terms of like, okay, well, why am I going to buy off this platform that I don't really know? Do you know what I mean? That side of things. So I think it was just too early, I think, in terms of that side of things. And because there wasn't really a big enough team at TikTok at that time as well to kind of give it the push it needed in terms of finding the brands, because especially I find here, again, working across UK and US brands, it's a lot easier for brands in the US to kind of like, okay, yeah, we want to at least try this, test it. Whereas in UK, it needs to be signed off by 20 people before it even gets like to the stage of, okay, maybe we're going to do this. So I think as well, that adoption meant that there wasn't many brands who were willing to try it as well. And I think, to be honest, we're kind of seeing that in some of the European markets as well now, where again, it's not got the legs yet because there's not enough of the, more I'd say, the top brands coming on yet. So that's why it's probably been a little bit slower in that instance as well. But so I think definitely at this stage, when the UK did launch, I think it just wasn't ready for it, is my personal opinion.
It almost sounds like you're saying there's like a different like price elasticity of demand with like the UK customer. Like, do you think it's like really more market or customer focused rather than like top brands focused? You know what I mean? Like,
I think consumers, because again, like I remember to like the start probably this year that the top selling products in UK was toilet roll, for example. Do you know what I mean? Right. So the fact that the pandemic, right? Pandemic and all that stuff. So again, it's just always like, it's products that are just unnecessary. I'd say that to do well in the UK. Well, did well in the UK. Exactly that. Whereas again, in the US, I always felt it was more mature that you would have, example, like your Tarte or stuff like that, even at the start, that your supplement brands were doing always well. Whereas again, the UK was always just like, say, your toilet roll was just always like the number one, number two products on the platform. And it was just like, it was the adoption of, like, say, the brands not understanding that you can go on the platform and actually sell to people on TikTok Shop. So again, and with that as well, like you mentioned, with the being less creators, and again, I still personally believe that the creator quality in the UK is nowhere near as good as the US, even if we're talking
why is that?
I think, again, it's just the base. I think there's a few reasons. I think the level to enter in the UK is easier because obviously you don't need as many followers. I think it's 500 or 1,000 now followers. So again, anyone can do it. And I think it's just the fact that there is more now, but there's not like the communities like you got. It's like you're in the US, you got like your creator corner, you've got your social army and stuff like that. There's nothing really here that's as big as that to be able to train and support the creators. There is coming along now, don't get me wrong, in terms of like agencies, obviously like cap, stuff like that. But I think because that's the case, it's always been harder. So anyone can literally have a few followers, get a product sample, because again, it's easy to get sampled as well, create a product, and the quality is just definitely a lot lower, I believe.
Really? So you're saying that even though the barriers to entry to become a creator in the UK are lower, the opportunity is also smaller because of like the price elasticity of demand of the customer. And so therefore it's just not a good setting to create content as a creator. Am I understanding?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. I think, don't get me wrong, it's definitely getting better. I feel like as time goes on, as you say, we're seeing better brands come to the platform as well. So it's definitely shifting in that direction. But I think as well, it's the fact that the bigger brands that are coming on, let's say, for example, in the beauty and stuff like that, they're getting good traction as well, more from the lives or the mega lives as well, like that side of things, rather than the affiliate side. So again, the affiliate side definitely needs a lot more work as a whole in terms of whether it's like, say, it's TikTok supporting them or agencies supporting them or these communities supporting them. Because again, and you probably see yourself, like, I mean, like so many lot groups, and obviously we've got so many brands in the UK, and then you see all this content coming back and you're just like, it's just so poor lift in terms of like, they get it, unbox it, the camera's poor, they've like got a baby in the background screaming, creating. It's just like, there's just no thought to it in terms of like, to me, I feel like they don't take it as serious. Again, don't get me wrong, you've got like a small percentage that do very, very well, but I think it's very, very hard right now to kind of find a lot of good creators at mass, especially if you're like, say, a brand coming onto the platform saying, okay, look, we want to launch and we want to be really aggressive. Can you find us X amount of creators? You can do it, don't get me wrong, but again, I think it's not as easy to get that scale straight away just based on the quality right now.
So do you think like the root of that perception comes from the launch in 2021? Like, do you think like, because I know in like the US launch, for example, as I'm sure you're well aware, TikTok was subsidizing every amount of OpEx and like really doing everything they could to get the brands to create that network effect with the creators, right? Because I think creators who are good influencers who do pay per post naturally have like a stigma towards TikTok Shop. So do you think it was because like the platform itself didn't provide enough incentives? I know you said they didn't have enough like of a team there, but I'm curious if there's any other reason.
There's definitely incentives. And again, I think it kind of needed that kind of alpha launched for it to understand what the kinks were to then launch again properly second time round, I think. So I think it definitely was needed. But I just think it was probably too rushed in terms of when they launched. I think that just that the whole kind of ecosystem just wasn't ready for it in terms of like it didn't have the brands ready to kind of say, okay, we're going to launch, let's just say hypothetically, like L'Oreal and some other brands ready to kind of go and then kind of build that hype up around it. I think it kind of just launched and just kind of happened and no one really knew about it. There wasn't kind of a big buzz around it. And then it kind of just fell off. And then, like say, if you said to someone when did TikTok Shop launch in the UK, they'd probably say this year, for example, because no one actually knew it launched. Like say 3-4 years ago, there was no awareness around it.
Interesting. I mean, this is kind of like a curveball, right? But I think like breaking that down, right? Because like for me, fundamentally, if there's a lot of risk from the consumer in terms of like elasticity, right? Yeah. I would just try to provide incentives to like make a better offer, right? Yeah. And I'm curious, like if you were to redo the launch of like TikTok Shop UK, like do you think there's like anything maybe you take from the US or take from your learnings to get better adoption from brands?
Yeah, I think it definitely would be the case of, like, say, there's definitely subsidies, don't get me wrong, there was definitely that, but I just don't think it was done at the same scale, right? But at the same time, I feel like, again, like, say, brands in the UK, they are more risk averse in terms of, like, they probably won't send out, even your top brands don't send out as many samples as, like, some of the smaller brands in the US, for example, right? It's just always the case. Like, again, we've got huge brands that we work with in the UK, and they're still only sending out maybe, like, 400 samples a month, for example, but still do very well on the platform. So again, it definitely can be done, but I think it's just that the market as a whole is just a different mindset to it. So again, if to launch again, I'd probably say, yeah, definitely subsidizing more. I think definitely more building the awareness around it definitely would be a better way of doing it. And again, I'd probably, like, say, having better brand, not necessarily better brands in terms of like enterprise brands, but brands that, like, say, are, like, say, more supplements, more beauty brands, more stuff that, again, people actually want. Because, like, say, it was just, like, say, sweets, like, say, toilet roll and stuff like that, which, again, it just doesn't really have that fact. It's commodity, right? Do you know what I mean? So it's, again, and then the fact is, toilet roll, that means you're seeing content around toilet roll. It's like, who wants to see that on the feed, right? So again, it just kind of diluted what TikTok Shop should have been when it launched, I believe.
But I'm curious because, like, I feel like I always hear that some of the marketing agencies in the UK, and this is not exclusive to TikTok Shop, like marketing agencies as a whole are some of the best in the whole world, right? But then I also hear that, like, the customers are more price sensitive. And for me, that leads me down a line of thinking where it's like the early marketing agencies were controlled by price sensitive brands, right? But, like, why do you think there are such good marketing agencies in the UK, right? Who are, I'm assuming they've overcome this hurdle of price sensitivity to get to, like, a worldwide top marketing agency, right? Is there anything, like, they're doing well that wasn't easy to, like, replicate over in, like, the TikTok Shop side?
Good question. I would say the main thing as well, I would always say as well, just from an agency perspective, when you try and sell it into the brands as well, they don't want to pay the high dollar for something they don't know is going to work as well, right? So again, you're having to try and do it with less resources to try and get it to work as well, which again, I feel like in the US, they know that the cost to kind of do something is going to be X, Y, Z, for example. Whereas in the UK, they'll try and just, even, like, say, whether it's, like, say, the consumer or actual brands themselves, they want to pay as little as possible. So again, it makes it hard for you to then justify your margin, stuff like that. So again, I feel like at that time, going back to when it launched, it maybe didn't make sense for agencies to take that risk. Because again, keep in mind, back then, there wasn't really, like, specific TikTok Shop agencies, right? So it would mean that your full digital agency would have to then pivot, find resources, or keep in mind as well, there's no new TikTok Shop, right? So it means you're having to pivot your resources to what's already working to a platform that who knows what's going to happen, right? So again, it's having to put some of your eggs into that basket and go and sell it to the brands. So again, so it kind of meant that it just didn't really make sense at that point, probably to agencies as well, which again, maybe then also meant that's why the bigger brands that these agencies had didn't get pushed onto TikTok Shop. So it's kind of that trickle effect for, like,
it's a capital budgeting problem, essentially. It's just like, hey, I have 3 buckets. I'm going to put it in with the best ROI for each bucket.
Exactly, right.
It's not like I'm going to burn like like this is the same thing, you know, I talked about in a different episode where it's like, what's the expected value of putting money into this bucket where I might lose cash up front, but then 10x my volume in the long run.
Exactly.
I'd rather have like a 3x ROI up front, right?
Guarantee that.
I mean, would that, like, does that culture carry over for like creative agencies in the UK? Like, were their best agencies mainly performance marketing then?
Good question. I would say not as much, because I feel like the creative agencies, so two parts I'll say. The creative agencies that are obviously providing creative for performance, it made sense because they knew that performance needed the creative, right? So I think from that side of things, but then also in UK, like anywhere, basically you get your creative agencies who are doing more like your brand awareness stuff. So I feel like for some reason, creative side of things was always what people knew and they believed in. Do you know what I mean? To a degree that, again, you need creative to do performance, or you need it for that. So I think it was already proven in a way, because again, you need the creatives for whether it's ads on Meta or
so it's
YouTube.
validated by
it was already validated by performance,
like
right?
input,
Whereas again, TikTok Shop there's no validation. And again, I keep in mind as well, at this point, people still thought TikTok was a dancing platform. So again, it's like, why are we going to spend our money that we know is working on Meta and creative and risk putting it into something else that we don't know, right? It's kind of like moving money from a stock that you're guaranteed to a degree and then taking a gamble and putting all your money onto black and the roulette. It doesn't make sense, right? So again, I feel like people are definitely more sensitive when they're making decisions.
Okay, so it's like basically validated by the degree of separation from performance marketing, where I know if I put $1 in, I optimize for another dollar out, right?
Yes, exactly that.
I mean, with that in mind, like with this sort of customer profile, how did you even convince anyone to work with you in the early days of like TikTok Shop? Like,
very good question. So back in the day, and this is what I don't recommend now because it's probably harder, but we worked with brands and it was just basically if we create sales for you, would get paid basically. So it's all performance, all performance. So again, we didn't charge any retainer. We just said, okay. And we're transparent as well. We said TikTok Shop was new. We are new to it as well. But we believe that there's going to be something to it. So again, at that point, it was literally just me and I think someone else who's kind of like working freelance part-time with me. So again, I was like, okay, we'll run this for you. And again, it should be based on performance. So if you make sales, we'll take a cut of that kind of thing. So the risk was low. Do you know what I mean? In terms of that side of things.
People did the same offer math where you just de-risked it
for the consumer. It's like, oh, okay, well, if that's the case, then let's at least try it. Because I know if we try to do retainers, that it just wouldn't work. Do you know what I mean? If we said, okay, we're going to charge, they'll be like, oh, why would we do that? So we definitely just went in with that. And don't get me wrong, we tried to just work with everyone at that stage, and some were good, some were bad, some were in the middle. It was just all up and down, which was interesting.
Classic launching phase. You got to work with whoever you can.
You got to work with who you get.
Interesting. So like, when did like the evolution of like that performance-based model turn into like a retainer plus performance? Like, or do you guys still only work on performance?
No, we work on retainer performance now. And again, I'd say it probably was, gosh, what we're now, 2025. It's probably towards the end of 2023 it was, because then at that stage we had results that was, we had the case studies to kind of back it up. So again, I feel like you need the case studies to be able to then show to the brands, okay, this is what can be done. Because again, at this stage, people kind of saying, oh yeah, people are getting sales. People, again, there was nothing really in black and white. And at this stage as well, no one really knew of like Callow data or Fastmod to be able to look at data, right? So no one really knew of that kind of stuff. So again, exactly. So it's all kind of like, okay, who do I believe in this? So again, at that stage, luckily we worked with the brands. We had the case study. We'd say, okay, speak to this brand here who we've worked with. And then that kind of allowed us to then snowball into obviously getting the retainers later on, which was good.
I mean, you said like no one really knew about I mean, Callow data and Fastmod. So Callow data existed for a bit. Yeah.
It's been around a while.
But like, so like for me, when I was selling TikTok Shop agency contracts with our team, like, I would go and I would research people on Callow data. And I'd be like, hey guys, like let's put together a full audit and send it to them. Like, is that something that you would do as you started charging retainers to get people in the door? Because it sounded like there was no awareness on TikTok Shop and its upside. So you had to come with a more warmer approach, right?
Yeah, you had to basically do everything off your own. And again, keep in mind this stage is, I don't know if TSPs are around them, but we weren't a TSP at this stage. So again, we were literally just an agency trying to offer TikTok Shop, right? So again, we're just trying to find any resource or anything we could find, because again, there was nowhere to really learn from. Do you know what I mean? You were kind of just, and that's why as well, I didn't feel right to charge brands retainers, because we're basically learning off they're paying us basically. So for me, I was transparent. I was like, okay, we're figuring this out together, but again, that's why we're not going to charge you. And again, that made it more transparent, and it built the relationships like that. So again, it did make it easy because there was just no resources to kind of find, or again, there was no one to speak to, because again, at that stage, there's brands obviously doing it, but again, no one was doing it to a level like today, like you goalies, your Mary Ruth kind of stuff. It was never like that. So again, you didn't know who to trust, who to believe in that kind of situation. It was kind of like head down, figure it out. The platform was definitely a lot easier then. But again, there was a lot of moving parts, I would say, which again, you just had to just try and figure out.
Well, I am curious because, like, you got CPA, you de-risk the offer, you got people on, you got some case studies, right? So your case studies get you a small retainer, plus I'm still majority performance-based.
Yeah.
I'm still assuming that based on the customer, right?
Yeah.
And so from my experience, right, when I am selling someone, like I believe that proper service delivery starts from sales, right?
100%.
Sales has to deliver a value proposition that's different from other people. And then during onboarding, you have to collect all the right info from the client. And then usually like clients get really angry if you ask for something that should have been collected during onboarding, right? And so what I'm finding right now is like people are selling like a more CPA de-risked offer, but they're like promising them the world, right? And then people are then like de-risking their approaches downstream, right? Like I think with creators, right? The top creators don't want to do performance-based.
Nope,
so it's almost like a UK customer on
it basically is literally, it's gone full cycle, and that's how it literally is right now.
It's full cycle. I mean, it makes sense because like there was a bunch of TikTok influencers who were charging like $5,000 per post, and you slap an affiliate model, there's going to be like a feedback loop in the market, right? But so you get the retainer, you start selling them, right? If you're starting to like propose the newer tactics which are emerging, like creator communities, flat fees, and retainers, don't you kind of have to go through that loop again of having to like resell twice?
To a degree, okay. So to a degree, yes. But I think what was happening at that stage, there was a lot more churn than there is now as well, I would say, because again, it was the expectation of some brands didn't understand. And for us as well, we didn't understand as well how long it would take for it to kind of work for some brands, right? Again, because again, when you launch with a brand, and like say, going back to it, you kind of just wanted to work with anyone and kind of to a degree hope it was going to work, right? So again, it was like, okay, we launch you today, you might see some sales coming in. Again, because at that stage, it was a lot easier to like say, even though you're doing manual outreach, you would get a creator saying, yes, you send a sample out, they would create a video, which literally is like them just posting and holding the product out and it'll go viral and make sales, right? So again, you kind of thought, okay, well, this is that easy, so we can continue to do that. So again, I think from a educational piece from our standpoint and also the brands as well, everyone thought, okay, you're going to be able to, this is going to be like, say, the next big thing, and you're going to go from 0 to 100 overnight kind of situation. So I think at that stage, there was definitely a lot of brands that kind of were trying it for maybe a month or two, but then like, okay, this isn't work, let's go somewhere else, or kind of do something else basically. So again, I think the churn was a lot higher. So it wasn't necessarily having to resell it to the current brands, because again, it kind of got to a stage where it was just the newer brands coming in and then kind of was telling them that's the kind of offering as a whole. There was obviously a few that was, and they kind of just understood the transition in terms of when we were moving to like, say, creating a WhatsApp group or a Discord. And again, we didn't necessarily charge them more at that time, because again, if it was making them more money, we'd make more money based on the percentage, right? But then again, that like our longer clients who we're with now, we then obviously have the conversation, look, we are doing more work now, it needs more resources, so we're going to have to discuss about extra payment for that. But again, 9 times out of 10, the clients were fine, because again, they saw the value was bringing, and obviously GMV and stuff like that. So again, it wasn't really a conversation like, we need to kind of think about this. It was kind of like, okay, well, if you need more resources, what do we need to give you to get to the next kind of milestone?
So would you kind of just start doing that and tell them like, hey, if you want to continue, we're going to charge you more? Like
basically like, again, so I'll say for some of my clients, like we just kind of started to evolve in terms of doing like, say, incentives, obviously with them knowing we did incentive, and let's say starting to create the communities, like say from the WhatsApp perspective. So it wasn't like a discussion like say, oh, we need to do this, we need to get paid more. We kind of just did it because again, we knew it was going to be beneficial for the brand to kind of stay ahead. So we kind of just did it and then kind of just, reap the rewards.
So did you take a risk providing those incentives with your own budget first?
No. It was definitely like say, it started with the community building, that side of stuff. And then the incentives, we kind of, because this was kind of when we saw Golly was starting to launch it. Because again, the thing is that incentives has never been anything new, right? Because again, it's always been incentives, whether it's been like, I remember like affiliate marketing back in, way back when it was like Frank Kern launched a product and again, the top 10 affiliates won X, Y, Z, right? So again, it was never anything new. And I always understood the model, but then I say Golly kind of made it kind of mainstream from a TikTok shop perspective. So because I understood that, again, it was easy to kind of sell it into the brands and kind of working out, okay, look, yes, do the incentives. And again, it doesn't need to be anything like say, we know what Golly would do in terms of like condos and all this kind of stuff. It's just kind of saying, okay, make sure it makes sense to the brand that if you are going to get X GMV from this creator, they get rewarded with this. So again, making sure that the the tiers made sense. So again, it was an easy sell because again, fortunate for the brands we were doing at that time, they had the budget to kind of do it, which was good. So again, it did make it a lot easier to kind of sell them into that. But like I say, the community side of stuff, we just built that out. We built out, let's say, sort of WhatsApp a lot of the brands to begin with, and we, like I say, started to move over to Discord.
So like what did early days community building look like if it wasn't incentives, right?
It was just literally just getting people into a community because again, I always believed at that stage as well, just like a customer, right? You can sell to a customer one time or you can sell to them repeatedly, repeat it the same as a creator, right? It's the same thing. Yeah. You want to get a creator in to create a piece of content, but then you also want to get them to create more content. So again, we're just kind of putting them in there with no real reason to at that stage in terms of just like getting them all into one place. Because I always a believer that again, you always want to a degree, own the data to a degree. Whether again, like say you're on a platform, like again, we obviously post on all these platforms, right? Again, you want to build everyone into a newsletter, right? So for my mindset, it was always like, okay, how can we get people from TikTok Shop Seller Center into a place where we've got, it was their mobile number or their email address. So again, we can obviously continue to have that conversation with them. So again, there was never anything in mind in terms of, okay, now they're in here, what we do with them, that was kind of just see what happens kind of situation. But I knew once we got them in the place, it would make it a lot easier.
So the thesis was like, how much can I own this affiliate relationship? Exactly. Because the response rate was, as we tools like Reach are coming in, just absolutely tanking the response.
Literally, right?
So like, you know, that sort of creates a response for the market where it's like, okay, like if I know creators are not going to respond in here, how can I get them to respond somewhere else? Like you don't really have any native technology to automate a newsletter in TikTok. So it is email, but it's like, you know, siloing community building from email, right? Creators can't commonly ask questions. They can't talk to each other. So you are missing that out over there. So like, I mean, was it still like I know you had the email and SMS, so I'm sure you probably like, oh, like let me run a PostScript campaign, like SMS campaigns or Klaviyo campaigns for emails. But like, was there other things you were doing in the community that were like separate than those levers? Because those felt kind of siloed from like a marketing perspective.
To be honest, back in the day, again, this is like we're talking like at the start, there was nothing special again. And that's why it kind of was, it felt a little bit broken, especially where we did on WhatsApp. But obviously WhatsApp started to build out the community side stuff. But what the issue we was having was any new creator that was joining the WhatsApp couldn't see the previous conversation. So again, they were then asking questions and it can get very, very repetitive from that side of things. So it honestly was just like say, because we had the email, it kind of worked twofold for us. Because again, obviously, working with multiple brands, it meant that we could utilize the creator and say, okay, we're working with XYZ. You want to work with these? So again, from our perspective as agency, it supported us to build obviously the other brands we're working with. And then for the brands we're working with who we had the community with at that stage, it just allowed us to get the message out to them. Because again, like I say, we built like a newsletter kind of thing for each brand. So again, we could send that out to them. Or again, like I say, we'd have someone in the actual community who's meshing, like I say, with the announcement, stuff like that. So again, it did make it just more touch points, I believe. Because again, even with the community, again, we was obviously sending like an announcements and the briefs and stuff through there. But again, it just kind of allowed us to have more touch points, I believe, with the creators, which made it a lot more easier.
So it makes sense, more touch points for affiliate retention, but it almost sounded like you were leveraging the same network effects of a marketplace.
100%.
By just like letting creators know like, hey, I have these brands I work with. But then before you have the creators, you're like, hey, creators, I have these brands I work with.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you just built the community up off of that network effect and you built the agency essentially distilling the value prop of your community up, right? So do you have like a social tail collective, so to speak, and is that part of your value prop? That
exactly. It's basically like, again, obviously lucky for us again, because we was one of the early adopters for the platform. And again, when we work with these creators, it was a lot easier to get them in at that stage. So again, so we've got like our US Discord, we've got our UK Discord, then we've got every Discord or lock for the brands now as well. And again, fortunate for some of the team members we brought on board, they either came from a brand that was doing TikTok shops. They obviously had creators that they knew and stuff like that as well. So again, it kind of all piled into one like bundle of like the community, which was good. So that makes sense. That continues to grow today, which is good.
I think people are migrating away from WhatsApp and Lark. I've heard like the ease of use was great to get people in, but in terms of scaling it, what I've been hearing on the UK is like Discord is the main 100%, thing, right? Are you seeing the same thing?
Definitely same. I think obviously TikTok and UK push Lark because obviously Lark is TikTok products, of course they get it right. But again, from our perspective, we've always Discord again based on us working with more US brands. Discord's always been the go-to, right? So again, we try and do that for all our UK brands as well. Again, some creators are a bit skeptical or don't understand it, but again, the more education around it, because again, they know more brands are doing it, it's starting to make it a lot more easier. You do find that definitely categories like health, they're just which is where they just understand that Discord is kind of like, it's like the dark web Discord is to some of the creators.
Like goalie, the neuro
exactly right, exactly. So again, so they understand it's Discord, and again, it's some of the older demographic. I think it's always harder to kind of get them in. But again, once they start to understand that's where it happens, then it's just adoption, right?
Well, like honestly, like even the sellers are having trouble. They're having trouble with Discord. I'm like, dude, I watched a 15-minute YouTube video. You just set up a channel for each thing a creator needs.
It's quite straightforward. Again, you can literally get someone. It's not that hard.
So why are people in the UK like so against using this Discord and setting up community management?
Again, I think it's just the skepticism of it all. Yeah, 100%. I think it's just they think it's a barrier again, and again, fortunately, because again, work with US and UK, you see the skepticism all the time. Again, like I had a conversation with a brand, I think it was last week, and again, they're saying about, oh, we don't want you to have any AI content, for example, like if AI content comes through, we need to turn it off, which is valuable again. But again, whereas I feel like some US brands are more for that. So again, it's just definitely just the skepticism side of it. I believe that again, Discord, never heard of Discord, so other people are going to hear of that. And again, I can't remember who it was. I think I spoke to another big brand and said about Discord, and they're like, but do people understand what Discord is? Is it going to mean that, because with TikTok talking about lock, should we get them on Discord? So again, it's just kind of like the educational piece around it. But again, I feel like once they start to see the adoption, see more people doing it, then again, it just becomes a thing. There's definitely the educational piece.
So, I mean, if you're talking to like UK sellers and I guess like other, UK brands and things like that who are hesitant to get on Discord, like, what do you say to them to meet that skepticism? Because like I can think of 1,000 arguments right now why they wouldn't. They'd be like, the cost of like allocating our labor here don't meet that short-term return for our capital budgeting model we laid out earlier, right? It's just like, I don't know if it really works. It takes a lot of time to learn. And I've heard these, things on the US side, but I think people in the US have this understanding culturally where it's like, I need to spend money to make money. Yep. And like the best people just spend a lot of money and then they end up
making a lot of money. Exactly right.
And it's like they know that like they're not going to make it immediately, but they know it kind of comes.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm just curious, like if you're going about approaching this like specific conversation around Discord with someone there, like how would you go about it?
For us, it's good because again, we have a community manager who kind of manages the whole Discord. So again, it kind of removes that friction for the brands that they don't have to be in there themselves. Again, we always say, look, transparent, it's your Discord. If you want to be in there, you can be in there kind of thing. But again, we will do the heavy lift in terms of the announcements, the briefing, or the messaging, the content, the webinar. We do all of that for you. So again, it's kind of like, it's a no-brainer if you're going to do it for us. So again, luckily, and again, it's an easier sell because again, we are doing it for them. And again, we say if you want to use Lock, you can do that. But again, we highly recommend for scaling, you might as well start with Discord and build up because again, that's going to allow you to build for the future rather than the present. Got
it. And then what about those like financial arguments where people like, I don't want to invest the time like in-house and stuff like that?
I think in terms of in-house for managing it, the community side of things.
Like, you have a community manager hire, right? Yeah. Like what do you say to someone who's like, I am skeptical about making a community manager hire or investing time in community?
I think, to be honest, I think we get it with every part of the whole TikTok shop side of things, whether it's like hiring more customer service rep or more affiliate coordinator, influencer person. I think it's just the fact that we always say, well, look, we will build it out and we do the full end-to-end management. And again, once it gets to a point that it's proven, we will recommend if you need to get someone. Again, we never had this situation where someone's been against it because again, like I say, we managed the majority of it. So it's been okay to now. And I think in terms of resource wise, I think the brands that know they need to, they will find the budget to kind of do it if they need to, or they'll kind of have like, most brands have like a social media person who can then kind of like fill in a little bit there in terms of seeing what's kind of happening in that side of stuff. So again, I feel that some of the brands, once they see it happening and working, they're happy to not necessarily maybe find a specific person for it, but they'll allocate someone who they would have internally to kind of be that person from the brand in-house, I'd say.
Interesting. I mean, I feel like usually when you split someone's time, like they don't do anything well.
Of course. Yeah, we all know that, right?
Yeah, but I just feel like there's a lot more barriers from like the creator ecosystem. So maybe the UK will start to adopt now that there's like case studies on.
Yeah, I think they will. And again, obviously, like brands like FreeSoul, they have like community manager person. Do you know what I mean? So there definitely is a case, but again, I think it's also having to get the budget signed off for it as well. Because again, if it's not a quote unquote something that's going to make them ROI, can they justify it? Like say, there's always going to be that conversation, right? Because it's never going to be. And I guess at the same time, on the flip side, playing devil's advocate, I guess that's probably the reason why an agency like us who can do that, they're fine to, against just like having like again a media buying agency, right? You hire them to do your media buying, right? So again, you're hiring us to do your community management, right? So you don't have to kind of hire someone. So again, I guess having that as the kind of selling point, again, also helps because they don't need to have someone full-time who has to be like in the community and just doing that 24/7.
I mean, it makes me think about another point you said earlier where it's just like, oh, like I think like for retainers, for example, let's like pick this one, right?
Yeah.
I feel like every UK person is against retainers, but like we did a presentation on TikTok partner training, right? Where we mapped out $5,000 of retainers versus $5,000 of samples, right? And it's just like with like the technology and the contest parameters that you have today, right? Like you could send out, let's say like sample landed cost is like $10, right? You could send out 500 samples, it's $5,000 in landed costs. You're probably going to get a post rate of like 50%.
Yeah.
And then maybe 10 to 15% of those generate videos. It's like what, like 25?
Yeah.
25 ROI producing videos. And then the variance ranges, it's skewed towards like the top creators in that, right?
Exactly. Always.
And so like making a bet on that model doesn't intuitively make more sense than like, hey, if I allocate $5,000 in retainers for like, let's say $200 a retainer for like, 375 videos, like 15 videos per 200 retainer, right?
Yeah.
I can like set rules in place where it's like, hey, to get your retainer paid, you have to generate at least 2x on your retainer, right? And it's just like, I only have to send out the product once, but I get 15 videos from each creator, right? So then that cost of that sample is split across 15 videos and ends up being like $1.10, right? And so like the math does kind of work out to like validate retainers 100%. With red tape, right? Where it's like, I have control of my content, I need a minimum GMV. Like I guess for me, that strategy has been around for like a while. Like, do you think people in the UK would still have skepticism because they're spending money up front?
Yeah, I think it's the money up front. I think they're definitely becoming more wise to it. Again, I think where it kind of falls short, I think the brands need to see a bit of momentum or some sales coming through, and then they kind of are willing to then spend on the retainer. So it's kind of the flip. To your point, I feel like as well, also because they know they've got the inventory to send the sample. They don't see it as much. They don't see it as a cost, even though it is a cost, because if they've got, 500 products sitting there and they're sending it out. Yes, it's a cost, but they've already got that. Whereas again, they've got to find the extra £5,000 to kind of allocate. So again, I personally believe, and I think it makes sense. I'm definitely going to use that analogy now going forward. So I need to get that from you. But I think definitely do it. So I definitely think it makes more sense because again, we know that you're going to get better quality in terms of the content's going to be a better output. You're going to be able to control it. You're going to be able to say yes to this, no to that. So I think personally, it makes more sense. And I do believe more brands are moving more towards that where they understand it more. But again, I think if they are hesitant already about TikTok Shop, it's then hard to do that. But if they're ready to go into TikTok Shop and know, okay, it's going to be X, Y, Z, then they will. And I think as well, which again, it makes it easy as well if you are forecasting for the brands, whether you are an agency doing that or the brands are forecasting themselves and they can see that them kind of numbers, then it makes it a bit easier. Whereas again, I feel like still today, I feel like a lot of brands go into TikTok Shop blind and they kind of just be like, oh, well, I've seen P. Louise in the UK doing really well, so I'm just going to try and just send out samples, hope for the best and see what happens, which again, we know that's not the case.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I have an interesting theory, right, where it's like, okay, UK marketing starts with a performance marketing model where like more price sensitive customers understand the dollar in to dollar out equation. So like, what if I do like a half sell where it's like I sell retainers that ultimately funnel into a paid media focused strategy. And then I sell paid media like GMV max, right? And I'm like, hey guys, like, totally understand. We can sell at an ROI target, or we can have like a condition in our SOW where we only spend at 3x ROI, but you have to invest in these retainers up front. Do you think UK brands would be open to that if they get the control back later down the line?
I think so. I think so to a degree, because again, I feel like the UK brands like the control of the content, do you know what I mean? In terms of what's actually being put out there on their brand. So I think so. I just think, I don't know how it works in terms of when budget and how budget gets signed off in the UK. Because obviously you have like your yearly budget kind of stuff like that. So I think it's just the fact because TikTok Shop is still new to a degree, they're not putting that budget aside, or they kind of are like, it becomes too late where they're like, oh, let's look into TikTok Shop, but it's either like nowhere near where they're setting the next budget for the next year kind of situation. They're trying to do it, but like a budget to kind of like test it a little bit here and try it here, but they're not willing to go fully in, which I always say to brands, look, if you're going to do TikTok Shop, you've got to be all in. You've got to be putting effort in for at least 6 months minimum, because if you're going to try it here and do a little bit there, it's just not going to be worth it.
But I am curious, like, I don't know, like, if this was your experience on the paid media side. So when I was working on like my UGC vertical at my previous agency, sometimes we just like sneak a little budget out of the paid media budget and we'd be like, oh yeah, this is for like better creative, right? Do you think that people would be more willing to approve budget for creative testing on TikTok Shop if it came out of their ads budget?
It's a good question because it's a good, now you put it makes sense because like I say, you're spending on the ad side of stuff. So to be honest, it's something I've not actually thought about, but I think it would make sense because if you've got that budget that you're spending on ads and you've got it there, then why not shift some of that to the creators? So I think it's just how it's probably sold. Again, back to the selling point, right? It's how it's sold to the brand. It's how it obviously then come on. But I think it makes sense.
Yeah, because like now TikTok Shop, like, I mean, they've had this for a bit, but they have like shop ads commission, right? So it's like, you know, if I'm like a head of e-commerce, right? I think like the lines between like my paid budget on TikTok Shop and my affiliate budget are starting to overlap, right? Because now I'm like looking at my monthly P&L in terms of my blended commission.
It's true. Yeah, it's very
like,
true.
You know, what is my, you know, target collab and organic affiliate commissions plus my, you know, ad commissions. And like if everything's trying to get pushed towards paid, right? Then like for me, I'm just thinking like, how do I make the budget also get pushed towards paid? Because people are more willing to spend there.
It's true. And like I say, the platform is becoming, like I say, it is more pay to play, right? So again, that, and you make a good point there because I feel like where it stands at the moment, all the budgets, even though it's all for paid, it's all split. So you've got your retainer budget, you've got your commission budget, you've got your they're all separate. Whereas like say if it's combined together, and then you utilize that all as one, I think that's a better way to put it. Whereas again, I feel like it's too siloed in terms of like say you've got your ad budget, because again, keep in mind, it's a whole different platform, right? Because again, your meta ads, you just have ad budget, you maybe have your budget for creators, right? Whereas on TikTok Shop, you are selling out samples. So the only thing it's close to is like your influencer marketing, but again with influencer marketing you don't really have an ad budget really, so again it's kind of bringing excuse me, two things together, which again like say it probably makes sense from a P&L standpoint that budget should just be as a whole. So you got me thinking actually as well, and I might actually just put this together.
Well, because like for as like a tech company, for me I'm thinking like, oh, like there's a lot of room to pivot. Like we all know like whitelisting on meta ads, like you know like it's a huge thing, right? Massive. And I was like telling some product managers at TikTok, I'm like, why don't you guys just create whitelisting capacity for a TikTok Shop? Because everyone is running TikTok Shop as a creative testing lab for meta ads.
Exactly right.
I'm like, don't you think you should just own the bottom of the funnel and allow people to like whitelist through the creator accounts instead of mandating an ROI target on GMV Max?
It's very true.
I'm like, they will spend more because this model works here.
Yeah,
you know?
It makes sense. It makes sense. I think it's like say it's just how it needs to be positioned, and you've got me thinking on that front.
Well, I am, you know, curious on like that note, like you are like objectively like so far ahead of a lot of UK agencies right now in your innovation. Like, how did you like stay innovative and like take these risks to like advance your offering to like, I would say a comparable top US agency, you know?
I think from our perspective, because like say, we always led with US and even today, like say about 75-80% of the brands are US based. So again, it allowed us to take the learnings from the US into the UK. And I think just by being in, like say, the community, because again, I'm you know what I mean, I'm always looking at everything, whether it's like communities, like say, or it's like looking on fast miles, or like I say, speaking to people who are running the US kind of like TikTok side of things. So again, I think being so in the trenches, I always like to say, because I enjoy it. Again, you find out what's working, you see what's not working, and then again, you kind of just put it together. Because again, even like stuff like, it's funny to me because I always like hear this stuff that we like US do, and then I come to like a TikTok event and they're like talking about it. I'm like, oh, well, we've been doing that for like 6 months ago. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, I think even today, I think they said about like doing like creator bundles, and that's something we've done for like one of our brands, like gosh, nearly 9 months ago, for example. So again, I think just for us, I always say, and it's funny because my wife listens, I always say to, when I'm always on course because she's always in the room, I say to brands that we're scrappy, and she always hates when I say scrappy because it's like, the fact is we are scrappy because again, like it's from TikTok Shop perspective, yes, you need to be strategic but you need to be scrappy. You need to be trying to figure out what's working and what's not working. And again, if it doesn't work, try something else, because if you're just trying to do the same thing, as we know, like I say, TikTok Shop moves so quickly. Like I say, one day it was like say, organic was the massive push, and again, you could go viral so easily. Now it's becoming retainers or pay to play or TikTok live. So you've got to stay ahead, because if not, you will just get left behind. And again, you're trying to do old, outdated things, which again, I feel that's where a lot of brands go wrong, because they'll see like a Mary Ruth doing great and they'll look back at the strategy, but that strategy is already too old. You know what I mean? So again, they're trying that, but Mary Ruth's already here. So again, it's just trying to stay ahead of the game, which is always hard because again, like but I do believe that the more you do it, the more you learn, right? Yeah. The execution is the best way for it.
Exactly. And I was actually interviewing Jay from Mary Roots last week.
Yeah, Jay, good friend.
Yeah, and like he was telling, he's like, people just don't have the money to match Mary Roots strategies.
Oh, 100%.
Like there's no way an SMB can run 24-hour lives.
It can't do it. It can't be done.
It can't be done. So there is that element of like, they do have operational excellence around community management.
Exactly.
Right? Which is like funny. He still believes that community management is the only hire you need for TikTok Shop, which, I was like, this like validates my thesis, but I think earlier we were talking about how you were kind of leaning more towards product and tech, you know what I mean? I think, for me, it's very easy to tell, probably because I've been on the inside, like what a marketing agency who has tech that they leverage in their strategy versus ones who don't have it, and
100%.
like, I think one thing you were talking about is like leading a small team of devs to like start making reporting more consolidated, right? Having that professional look of having like a social tail dashboard, I'm curious, like why lean into, tech? Like, are you thinking like the same way? Are there any other ideas you're thinking about when leveraging those developers? Yeah,
good question. I just believe, and again, this is probably back to my performance meta days as well, same benefit, the data doesn't lie, right? So again, the more data you've got, the easier it's to make decisions, right? And right now, we all know that to pull in from TikTok Shop, it's so clunky in terms of like trying to find your affiliate side of stuff or your GMV max. So to have it all in one place, because again, it's not just for the team internally looking at that, but it's also presenting it to their clients as well. And again, what you always remember is that there's the clients you might speak to on a day-to-day, but there's also other stakeholders in the brand as well who maybe want to see stuff. So again, the easier we can make that digestible and make it to be understandable, it allows us to then be able to scale a lot quicker, because again, from our side of things, we can see moving parts a lot quicker as well. So I believe obviously data is always going to be key. So again, if we can find, even if it's like a small percentage across each brand, it will make a massive impact.
You get buy-in,
100%. So again, I feel like by being able to do that, it allows the team to be able to move more efficiently and more quickly as well at the same time. And at the same time, I feel like reporting is always going to be needed, but the manpower to do it isn't to a degree.
Yeah.
So if someone could just be pulling that, and again, just not just from a data reporting standpoint, but also from a P&L standpoint, a forecasting standpoint, that all can be there. Again, it just allows you to make actual decisions based on data rather than just guessing like, oh, TikTok Shop's going to take 5 months to become profitable. Do you know what I mean? You've got that data there in black and white. So again, and we see it today, obviously, like you've got your Reacher, you've got obviously these P&L. It's going to become more of a thing. Do you know what I mean? So again, from our perspective, if we can showcase that to the brands even more, and like say from an agency perspective, it's just going to allow us to continue to grow.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because like it almost sounds like this technology is more amplified for the UK because you have to sell your clients with data on your
exactly.
So it's like, because like reporting dashboards and stuff, like they do exist, for other agencies and stuff, but it's just like for you guys as a UK agency, it sounds like there's actually more reason to build that than other tech, because if you get that data to convince the client that investing in retainers works, because you're able to pull easy to view dashboards, send to stakeholders to not go through that 20 layers of approval, that helps you innovate faster as an agency, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So then when you don't have to like take as many risks on your own dime to just be like, oh, I've seen this US strategy working, because the platforms freaking shift all the time.
All the time, right? And again, and as well for us as well, because we're all working across so many different brands, different categories as well, it allows us as an agency to say, okay, well, look, we work better with pet brands, so let's go and focus on more pet brands, or we work, do you know what I mean? So again, it also allows me as a founder as well to be able to make them informative decisions based on the data, or again, maybe finding our next hire could be someone from, like, say, a pet brand, because we know it. So again, it allows us to make as much informative decisions as possible rather than just presuming.
So like better decision making, and then of course, like, you guys work with us, so like I just bucket that into like saving time and also more data.
100%.
I'm curious, like, what do you think? Like I know there's like blockers to invest in more tech from like the UK side, right? But like, what do you think like an ideal tech stack would be for all the like UK brands listening on like how to scale on TikTok Shop? Yeah,
good question. Obviously, shameless plug, obviously Reacher, definitely from the, not just the outreach perspective, but being able to manage and data, looking at the data as well, because obviously dashboards are great within that in terms of knowing how many people who reached out to, how many samples and all that side of stuff. And again, obviously which creators creating the GMV, because again, obviously you can see that within TikTok Shop, but it takes so much longer, do you know what I mean, to kind of get that. So I think definitely that side of things, because again, and I personally believe anyone can use Reacher because it's such a great platform in terms of if you understand it, you just like, a few hours in it, you can get it. So again, it means that you're not necessarily having to hire free people who are like TikTok specific. You can literally just have someone in your team who can then be trained to kind of do it. So I think definitely that part of it. And then again, like I say, definitely, because again, I believe that, which is understandable, brands are getting more smarter and knowing that, yes, TikTok Shop is an investment, but what does it look like from a P&L standpoint? So again, being able to have that data, because again, when you try and pull data manually from the finance section on TikTok Shop and looking at Jim, nothing matches up. It's just all, it's all different. And the brands are asking me, oh, why is this not, and you're just like, I actually don't know. So again, so something that is clear in terms of that side of things definitely will help, because again, I think it makes it a lot more easier. And then I think as well, there are a few already out there, but I think especially from a live standpoint as well, because again, obviously we haven't spoke about it much yet, but in terms of like lives, is obviously something that's going to continue to grow. So I don't know what that looks like. Obviously there's a few platforms out there that are tracking lives in terms of like the sentiment and stuff like that as well. So I think that is also going to be the next kind of evolution as well, depending obviously how far lives continue to grow. Yeah,
I agree. There's a lot of like live, specific agencies. And like to your finance point, like I was asking a bunch of TikTok AMs about that too. And like,
what response did you get?
Yeah, but I sort of like realized why I think there was like a 4 to 5 day delay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I realized it's because like, when commissions from affiliate come in, there's still a chance for
refunds. Exactly.
So they need to have like that buffer for delay, so that makes sense. But like, I was like trying to export old finance reports for like some of the brands that I work with. And I was like, oh my God.
It's tough, right? Yeah. Because even though, like say one of my brands, because for all their platforms, they pull like a daily report in terms of like, and obviously you can't really do that on TikTok because it doesn't match up. Well, you can do it, but it doesn't match up correctly. So it's just very, very hard.
Yeah. The reporting frequency is harder to nail down.
Really is.
Well, look, I would love to go into TikTok lives, but I think this is a good place, to call it.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you jumping on.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Fantastic conversation.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's been really good.